all new things. This is Gus. He's probably going to join us because
I can't handle not being a part of it. So we're going to cross our fingers on our other two.
Okay. Awesome. Good morning or evening or whenever anyone's listening to this to another episode of In a Fairfield Minute, aka IAFM. Today we are here with Oliver and Erika with Fresh Start Laundry. Hi guys.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Doing well, thank you.
It's awesome to meet you.
Thanks for having us.
Gosh, no, for sure. So just quick backstory. I don't know how I found you guys, but I found you guys somehow, and we've used you for laundry service, which is super awesome. And then we just kind of struck up conversation, and I thought it would be cool to bring you guys on and just kind of talk about what you guys are doing, a little bit about your business, a little bit about your background. One of the things that is super important to us, in fact, even our first issue, which we have our 1 year anniversary next month in March for In a Fairfield Minute. Our first issue was the rise of the entrepreneur because of COVID. Everyone kind of had to pivot and figure out a way to survive in this craziness. So we will kind of hand it off to you. Just tell us a little bit about yourselves, and we'd love to get to know you.
Not sure where to start, but our entrepreneurial segment sounds really interesting to me because that's been my whole career.
Awesome.
Yeah, I haven't worked for anybody since I was 30, so it's been a long.
You're speaking our language. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I had a corporate job in finance, and I woke up one day and I'm like, yeah, I don't really like this. It wasn't for me, and I desperately needed a way out. That I needed to make money, so just quitting wasn't an option. So I had to build up a backup plan to slowly ease my way out of the dependency of a paycheck and create my own business. So when you say that, you're speaking to my heart. I love entrepreneurship, and I think it's personally, I think it's the only way to go. Yes, it comes with its own share of stress, but it's your own. You own it, right? You can only blame yourself if things don't go well.
I spent decades helping other businesses. I've been in business development. The last 10 years or so, I worked directly with startups. So I did business development for startups, and it's for us too. I was working for a startup, so much so to the point where I was under so much pressure, it was making me sick. Literally, I was in the doctor's, my doctor's like, I'm going to give you Valium. I'm like, I don't want Valium. I just need a new life. And that was it. And Paolo was like, dude, you need to do something.
Yeah. Because the signs were there for a long time that he needed to be on his own, right? It was obvious. I started my own design business before he broke free from his, corporate stuff. And I was petrified. He's more the entrepreneur than I ever envisioned myself to be. So for me, it's been a much larger learning process. So how was it for you? Did you stay in the finance world to begin with? Or was it kind of like working on, Fresh Start maybe, while you were still there, and then, you switched away?
It's been a migration of things over time. It's interesting. I have a business partner that I've worked with for 25 years. And he and I talk about how things have changed so much over the last 25 years. It used to be you could pursue an idea, and that idea could be good for a long period of time before you had to adapt. And that's not true anymore. Now you got to constantly be evolving, constantly changing. You can't rest on your laurels, which was true when we first started our careers. You could get something going and it works. And it took a while before other people figured out you had a good idea.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, and it's because we live in instantaneous information, right? So if you see something and you think it's cool, you could immediately obviously Google it or research it and find a way to either make it better or worse in certain instances, I'm sure. Exactly. I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I've had my share of failures a lot.
I think that's a great thing.
That's where you learn.
Yeah,
it's true. That's where growth comes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So when did you guys start this?
So there's sort of a long backstory to this. It didn't.
We have time.
The whole backstory.
All right, tell us the story.
So we've owned laundromats for, I opened my first laundromat in Stamford, Connecticut, quite a long time ago. At the time I was single, no kids, hated my job. And I was at the library one day reading and came across an article about laundromats. That's an investment opportunity. And,
Yeah.
this is before the internet, before anything. And so I built one and it did very well. And that was my segue out. And since then I've owned 6 or 7 locations over the last 20 plus years. What's interesting about the laundry is that, and we've always offered a wash and fold services in the stores so people could come in and drop off laundry.
Right.
And so we've done that for a long, long time. But a couple of years ago, I started selling off a lot of my locations. I didn't want to do it anymore. And people want them, so they're really easy to sell. And kept my last location, which is still in Stamford on East Main
Was
Street.
it your flagship store or
It was my second store I ever built, and it was a very good store, always very busy walk-in business, a lot of wash fold coming in, customers, self-service. And I was thinking of getting out of that. And then, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I've always thought about pickup and delivery, but the market was never there. Believe it or not, laundry business is running about 20 years behind the rest of the world technology-wise. There wasn't software, there wasn't really interest, but Uber, Amazon, all these big companies have changed how people think about their lives and how they live it.
Sure. Subscription services, things just kind of like, all these little things that make your life a little bit easier. And
well, it's also very much generational, right? Like now with millennials, everything is Uber or laundry delivery or whatever the case may be. They live in a world of like instantaneous,
gratification.
I don't know if gratification is the right word, but like I need this to get done. There's someone who's going to fulfill that service, and they move on with their lives and what have you. Erika, how did you kind of guys merge together with all of this?
Yeah, so I'm a physical therapist, and I had a couple little businesses of my own. And once Oliver started this pickup and delivery business, and it was growing, and he needed help. And I could see some of the. We work well together, but we're very different. And I could see some of the places where he really needed help, but just didn't have time to do it. So I just said, listen, I'll take this on. I'll take it on. And it's been fun. I just took on like the customer service stuff and some of the website stuff and
whatever it is,
stuff that he didn't want to do.
No, it's overwhelming sometimes. It really is.
It is very overwhelming, and the nature of things have changed a lot. And I traditionally have invested in businesses that were sort of necessities that didn't require a lot of marketing, advertising. You didn't have to create brand awareness, and they made money despite themselves.
Right.
But that's changed. This business is very different, and you need to create a brand. You need to be engaged with all the different products and services out on the internet, and you got to use them. And Erika is very good at it. So she's been a great complement to helping us grow. And our timing was good because we did this, really started just before the pandemic hit. Which not by design, but a
couple years ago. Like that sounds pretty much.
Yeah, I think that's when I found you guys, because for us, it's just like we are constantly on the go. We have 2 kids and they're young, they're 5 and 10, and laundry is just like laundry typically constantly just piles up. And it's like the last thing that you want to do, a lot of times I feel like a lot of parents are also like living out of like laundry baskets. So it's an awesome service to be able to have everything clean, folded, and you can just put it
overnight
away.
like you're not
overnight
even, that's one of the things that I love about what you do is just it's so easy. Like we literally schedule it, you pick it up, we have it out in the morning, and the next day it's back folded, clean, beautiful, and all we got to do is put it in the drawers, and it's the best thing ever.
No, I know Eric and I spoke over email, and I remember you mentioned like just with the magazine and everything that we do, and obviously everything that kind of what we do is built around helping people. Obviously we all have to eat, so we all have to make money, but a lot of what we do is we want to be able to help people, help businesses. Our goal is to spread goodwill, right? And build a bridge amongst people in our community to, come together in such a polarizing world that we live in now.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have a lot of, or not a lot, but you have a give back kind of thing behind what you do as well. I'd love to learn a little bit more about that.
Well, that's what I want to take on next is how can we give back to our community, whether it's, taking on, some washing, sports team uniforms, or going to some of the shelters and doing the laundry there. We're trying to right now figure out a way that we can do that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, one of the, like helping, families that have limited incomes who need help. So we really want to do more in that space.
Sure.
Even our own staff, we pay more than most people in our industry pay, and we would like to continue doing that. Because there's a lot of people who really need help. And one of our goals is really to try to pay, like, our staff. We have great people work for us, but then they work really hard, but they also don't make $100,000 a year.
Sure.
And they work hard, and we're always looking for ways to take care of and offer them more. And because their work is just as important as anybody else's. It's just a different type of work. It doesn't get rewarded.
Absolutely.
You're the ones keeping you running. They're
Right.
helping to bring your dream to life, your business to life.
Of course.
Yeah, and we live on this side of the world too, which is not an easy, place to live in terms of, living, right? It's difficult. There's a lot of challenges for everyone. So I think that's fantastic.
What has been your biggest challenge? That's kind of a big question, but
Good question. Staff, I would say. Like, we're
Staffing has
good
been-
place now, but it was hard for a while.
Sure.
It was really hard for a while. Oliver was out, in the van driving every day.
I've been to your house.
Yeah,
Don't judge.
so like,
Probably
I
a
saw
hot
your
mess.
tornado.
I know where you live.
Don't judge me.
Oh my God. Yeah, you don't want to see our backyard. Between our kids and our dogs, they've destroyed it.
Destroyed.
Yeah, well, we have a backyard littered with frisbees and bones as well. Yeah, it's been challenging because you're also growing a business, so you don't have the luxury of saying, okay, I'm going to throw all this money at it. You
Yeah.
have to get your hands dirty, and that means hopping in the van. And I did. I drove for a while until we got enough volume. And getting the right staff has been very challenging. That's been very, very tough. So, like, if someone calls out sick, I got to fill in.
Yeah, it's just like we see it every day, and I imagine that's such a massive challenge, and especially being small business owners, right? Like, you wear a million different hats.
yeah,
You're the delivery person, the marketer, the web person, and so on and so forth. So
being an entrepreneur goes so much farther beyond than just I own my own business. It, like you said, it's getting your hands dirty. It's wearing all the hats. It's you like leaning into it. It's a 24/7 thing, and a lot of the times it's not your only thing. You might have multiple businesses.
Yeah. So I own other businesses, and that's always been I never kept all my eggs in one basket.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Very smart.
So, but it's, like you said, it is challenging. And I also think, it's important when you're building a business to be engaged in all aspects of it, because you need to understand how it works. And frequently what happens is you find out you make your money in places that you didn't really realize thought you'd make your money.
sure.
Yeah.
And that's the important takeaway. Because if you're not engaged and you're not involved and people do this frequently, I've seen it many times, and they're typically businesses that fail. They throw money at it. They hire people because they have this vision of, I want to own a business. I want to own a company.
Yeah.
But they don't want to be in the minutia. They want to walk on water, if you will. And they don't really understand it. And then they burn through their money, and then it fails because they weren't willing to put the time and effort in it. And that's the tough part. It never stops. And one of the things Erika and I talk about all the time is boundaries.
Yeah.
Business
Oh, wow.
should be everything, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I'm not very good at setting boundaries.
I don't think
I think we all struggle
I
with
think
that
we
a
all
little
struggle with
bit.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a part of you on such a deeper level. It's not just you at a desk like, oh, I'm working and I'm getting something done.
But it's your livelihood, so you can't help but not. It's almost impossible to have boundaries, right? Because this is your livelihood. This is how you live. And I think entrepreneur, like myself, like I have, I always talk about this. Like I have ADHD, so I spend like pretty much my entire life in fight or flight mode, right? Like if I'm not worried about something dumb I did in the past, I'm worried about something dumb I'm going to do in the future. And as an entrepreneur, that's like it's like I don't know, like you're begging for
you're always
panic attacks all the time because
learning. You're
you have
always
nothing in control.
tripping,
Yeah. And it's stressful if you're way too busy, and then it's super stressful if you're not busy.
That's where Paula, like that's literally where Paula lives. Like I'm like every day I'm like, so what is it? Are you just not busy enough, or are you too busy?
Too busy where you can't
exactly. And it's true. It's just how it's the reality of being an entrepreneur. But in the long run, I feel like the juice weighs out the cause because it's yours and that's your success and you're creating whatever your goal is, generational wealth or, just something to hand off to your children or what have you, I mean, our son, he's like, I'm not going to go to college. I'm just going to take over whatever you and mom are doing. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Ask him when he's 17. I don't know. I've offered that up to my kids and they roll their eyes.
Oh, I know.
That's a gift.
I'm like, I'd rather have someone hand me something than have to grind my way.
Oh my God. I wish that I could just be a corporate, like be just someone who can work in a corporate setting and go to work and do their 40 hours or 50 hours, come home and just, I am not wired that way. Mm-hmm. And I've tried a million times and it's just like, I'm not a happy person. I like the idea of having endless opportunity to be successful or just be comfortable or whatever you want. I think that's kind of like the nice thing. You can say, I just want to make this amount of money and I'm going to create a business plan to do that. And I'll be comfortable and I'll be fine. Mm-hmm. Or I want to try to make as much money as I possibly can. And that's my goal or whatever the case may be. But also, I also think like our country was founded on entrepreneurs, right? Like my grandparents were from Italy and Poland and they came here and they created a life and, they had different businesses and what have you. Now, do you guys serve, what areas do you service?
We cover 90% of Fairfield County and probably 80% of Westchester County.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Yeah, basically it works out to be about a 16 to 20 mile radius, which we can service very well because, our location in Stanford's right off the highway.
Yeah, sure.
So we can get around really well, and it's working out pretty well. But we just finished we're going into finished our third year. But you said something that caught my attention when you said, your ADHD, which I think is great for an entrepreneur personally, because you got to be able to bounce around. And Erika will tell you, I 1 minute I'm sitting in front of a computer doing my QuickBooks, and the next thing I know, I'm down at the store, building a new folding table for the staff because we need more space. It's like, but it's great because you have to be able to transition constantly in your role, even and we have 15 employees right now, so we are, I have help, but it doesn't stop, and you always got to be evolving and got to be changing.
What do you all do to decompress and relax and not think about work?
I like to go,
trips.
We don't really go on trips, walks.
Fresh air.
I love to go on walks with our dog, like every weekend. I'm like, let's go on a walk. Or we both work out, so things like that.
Weekends, just hanging out with friends and doing stuff. But it just. But I'm much better with the boundary stuff, though. I get a point where I'm like, I'm done.
You can check out.
Hear about it. I don't want to hear about it today. It's 7:00 on Friday night. I'm done.
Is it wild how you can, I remember when I was in corporate, let's say, like I'm a graphic designer. I've lived in agency life forever. And it was draining the life out of me. And I just remember thinking, like, there's nothing else out there for me. Like, this is the life I chose and this is where I'm going to be. And it was so refreshing to take that chance, take that first step. And I remember feeling like, wow, I have so many more responsibilities. You touched on this, like when we first started talking, like I'm now in charge of setting money aside for my taxes. I'm now in charge of figuring out my insurance. I'm now in charge, all these little things that are usually taken care of for you, right? When you work for a larger corporation or a company. But it's your own. So even though you're taking up so much, more of your time and more of your energy, it's still your own. And like you said, the stress is your own, but you're not just like like in a factory. Like we used to call it, like we're just making sandwiches. Like it's just every day,
Yeah.
And you take something, you fulfill a need, like with Fresh Start Laundry, like you're fulfilling a need that you see is there. You evolved an existing business. You shifted your mindset. You know what I mean? Like you envision something new. That was one of the biggest things coming out of COVID that we felt it was so important to literally celebrate, because people were losing their jobs. People had no idea what to do with their life, because they couldn't find a replacement job in their, let's say, quote unquote field. So they had to almost reinvent themselves, put themselves out there. There's, and that's why we feel so strongly about getting to know the people behind the businesses. There are human beings that are giving of themselves, that are putting their energy and love into something for you, right? For other people, whether it's a service, as in laundry, as in design work, as in whatever, or you're making something to sell to others. It's like made with love. Like I feel like there's a lot of we don't give ourselves enough credit, I think, coming out of what we've been through. And a lot of people, you know what I mean? They've had to truly reinvent their lives.
I thought the interesting thing was a lot of people I saw like turn their kitchens into restaurants. I don't know if you guys saw any of that, but it's pretty wild. Like there's like a bunch of, like I was seeing on
New York, no?
Well, in New York and LA particularly, where people were like, there was one guy who was making like Detroit style pizzas out of his kitchen. And it just kind of happened out of nowhere, and it like blew up into this like massive
this, like,
thing.
underground.
And then there was a woman in New York or LA, I can't remember where it was. I think it was LA, where she was making her own sushi bowls out of her house and selling them for like $45 a bowl with the actual bowl. But I think that's great. The cool thing about being an entrepreneur, and I don't know if you guys agree, is like you literally could take any idea and it could become something wildly successful.
Yeah, it is. You're right, and you got to take the chance because you don't really know.
Sure.
And one of the things that I've learned over the years is that very few people will support your idea. Everybody.
Yeah.
I didn't choose to go into the laundry business. It wasn't like, oh, I want to own laundromats and do laundry. It wasn't. That's not what I went to college to do. My ambition was to go to Wall Street and make money like all my other friends, and I did that for a period of time, and then I realized it was very unfulfilling for me. It didn't fit my personality well, and I was miserable. And so I think your point's quite valid. And I forget what I was going to. I was driving towards. I had like having a senior moment
about how you got to go with your passion. Basically, like a lot of people won't support you.
Like being
but people won't support you. I mean, people will be like, "Why do you want to own a laundromat?" I'm like, I don't really want to own a laundromat. It's not like it's like been a dream of mine since I was 14 years old.
I have a friend, Phil, who all he wants to do is own laundromats. Like, I swear to God, he's been talking about this for like 20 years. That he's like, dude, I'm gonna every day for 20 years he's been looking to buy laundromats, and he's never.
I'll talk to him. I'll fix them. It's one of the things you gotta. It's like, I think over time you sort of evolve, and I've owned a number of businesses and done a lot of things, and at the end of the day, you sort of look. Most businesses have a lot of the same structure. It's just the product or the service that's different at the end of the day. But the structure that goes behind all these businesses, that be yours or mine, is the same. You still have to do bookkeeping. You still got to pay your taxes. You still got to think about inventory. You still got to think about content. If you're producing something, where's that coming from? How are you going to produce it? So it's all the same thing. Like so my production is washing and folding clothes. Your production is coming up with content. right? But there's still the same work goes into doing that. It's just a different type of work. And
Mhm.
people don't understand that if you find a good model,
Mhm.
you end up embracing it. And not necessarily because it's what you had set out to do, but you know it works and it's going to get you other goals. And for me, one of my biggest goals was the ability to spend a lot of time with my kids. I was the dad who was at all the sporting events, coaching teams, you know, hugely involved with Fairfield Youth Lacrosse, you know, since its get-go. You know, and I was there all the time. I was the one picking you up from school. I was going all over, you know, the Northeast on into tournaments and games because I had that flexibility in the time. And that was a lifestyle choice, but my choice that allowed me to do that. And yeah, maybe I would have made more money during that period of time in a corporate job, but I wouldn't have had that flexibility.
Yeah.
I,
And
I
that's so
wouldn't.
true. Like people talk about like, what is your why? You know, that's something that's kind of out there. And like, you know, people might think it's fluffy or whatever, but it's absolutely true. What is your why? What's driving you every day? And if what's more important to you is being home, like I tell my kids all the time as well, you know, I go out there and find an agency job and not see you. Or I could
Yeah,
be
and for the
home
record, Pal and I
busy.
never worked together. Like for
Huh?
like 15 years, we've never been together for she always worked, and I always, because I worked in outside sales and I worked remotely.
Yeah.
I always took care of the kids and, you know, the pick up, drop off, and all that stuff or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So we've had to get used to like being together all the time. And we're
Yeah. So
like,
we only started working together this past year, and you know, I mean,
But
up
it's
to that point, I did my thing, she did hers.
Yeah.
Nice,
But it's great to see how like you can just come together and bring your expertise, bring your, you know, your energy, even like your own personal energy into something and make it a beautiful thing, you know. And I'm grateful, and I keep telling my kids anytime they say, you know, oh, you don't play with me, or oh, you know, you don't play. And I'm like, I'm here.
my parents never played with me. That was like, you know what I mean? Like my dad was in the military for a very, very, very long time. He was career military, and like he left the house at 4 a.m. and didn't get back until 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, or whatever the case may be. And we
My parents saw me as free labor. You know, we had horses and, you know, small farm, and, you know, it was like, play with us? No. It was like, you know what? There's a stall that needs mucked out if you're bored. Go do it.
My dad's idea of quality time would be like, I would tag along with him going to like the High Lie. I don't know if you remember the High Lie.
Yep.
or like the OTB or something. And I'm like 3 years old, and I remember people like ripping up tickets, and I'm like, what? My brother and not my sister, but my brother has like saying things like, yeah, I remember that too. You know, it was like, yeah, we'll spend time, but we're doing what I want to do. And now as parents, now we're like, oh, you need to do this. We're going to do this and we're going to do that or whatever. And it's like, same thing. I tell my son all the time, I'm like, dude, Papa never played with me, man. Like he was a great father. Don't get me wrong. Amazing person. But there was no like, hey, let's go play catch outside. It was like, I'll drop you off at Little League and I'll be back in an hour.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, now you have to stay and watch him play.
Oh my God. I know. Well, my son, whenever he played sports, which he likes playing sports, but he's not into organized sports. He wants no one there except for like me. Oh. Which is like, I'm the one who hates having to go to these things too.
Yeah.
I'll be like, I want no one, because like our family would want to support him or whatever, and he's like, nope. You could tell them just you, Dad, and I'm like,
they would have to wait like in the parking lot by the car and just try to like
That's
peek
great.
in.
That's great.
Yeah, and he was the one who like sidelines just blocking everyone, just like, nope, it's just me. You know, it's ridiculous.
That is so funny.
How many kids do you guys have?
So between the two of us, this is our second marriage. We have 5 together.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
God bless you guys.
What's your age range?
So I 23, 21 are mine, and 21. Then 21.
18.
Is she 18 or 19?
No, it's going to be 19.
18 and 17.
You guys
so one left at home.
That's it.
Can't even one left in high school, and then we're, I guess, done.
Empty nesters.
Yeah. So you're on that. I was gonna say you're kind of on that like next level of like like my siblings are a lot older than I am. They're 16 and 14 years older than I am. And all my nieces and nephews are adults. They're in their 30s and what have you. Because they watch like my sister and my brother-in-law and my brother or whatever, and they're like out. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing. I'm home because I have no other choice because legally I can't leave my kids. We're gonna go out and grab dinner. I'm like, that sounds lovely.
And they're like right down the street too.
Yeah,
Like,
I know. Oh my God.
so funny.
Listen, I want to give a shout out to the both of you. I think it's really wonderful what you're doing. You're in a Fairfield Minute, and I really enjoy going through and looking at the stories that you have of everybody, and it's really nice, and I love it because it is really positive and uplifting, and you're really showcasing, people and businesses, and I just think that's really wonderful. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, that's
my
great.
God, it's funny because this was like in a Fairfield Minute came out of me arguing with people on the internet a lot during COVID. Not that I said anything controversial.
Like 2020.
It was just constant debating over this or that or whatever, and they came theme. And coming from a father who was in the military, there's no such thing as like. There's only solutions, right? You move forward, and that's that. Don't be a part of the problem. Be part of the solution.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's my friends think it's hilarious that I have a positive media group because I'm so opinionated about every other thing in the world. But
that's okay.
The thing about it is it's kind of like by design though, because again, like we were talking about, like I have ADHD. My mind works in a million different ways. And, I say this often where like I suffer from anxiety and depression. And I think we all do to some extent, right? Everyone does in one way. But like with ADHD, like one of the bigger things that comes along with it is that you tend to think negatively versus thinking positively. That's something like I have a negative mind. If I'm up at bat to play baseball, I'll just assume that I'm going to strike out as opposed to being like, I'm going to knock this out of the park or whatever the case may be. So I've learned to train my mind.
No.
Huh?
Can I make an observation on that statement?
Yeah, sure.
I think you wouldn't have started the Fairfield Minute if you were as negative as you claim to be.
Fair
because
enough.
it takes a certain degree of optimism to do that. And Erika and I have this discussion because she thinks I'm negative. But I've started a lot of businesses. I mean, I have, and I consider myself an optimist.
Yeah. And likewise, like I always tell people, like I'm an internal optimist. Like no matter what comes out of my mouth,
you are an internal optimist.
I genuinely believe everything will work out in the long run.
But you have to but while you're going through the process, it's sort of painful, and you sort of go question yourself as you do it, right?
Yeah.
It comes off as negative, but at the end of the day, the base, I believe, is positive.
True.
But otherwise, you wouldn't even make that jump.
Yeah, that's true. If someone who is genuinely negative, they wouldn't be able to find the positivity in anything, right? Like, and that's the thing. Like, and that's what I wanted to do. Like, I was tired of seeing friends and family and strangers, for that matter, arguing over things that, in my opinion, I believe that everyone wants the same thing, right? We all want life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, our families and friends to be healthy and happy and successful and prosperous and all of those things. But we all have different ideas on how we want to get there, right? And that's where everyone kind of gets, that's where the waters get very muddied. And I think that's just human nature. But I just felt like, you know what? If we could find common ground amongst people, which, believe it or not, there are people that you think that you would never have anything in common with, but you do. And I like the idea of being able to kind of talk with people and bring people into light and to see someone and be like, you know what? Like, I don't think, because I've done it. I've seen people where I've been like, just look at that person and be like, I don't think I'd probably ever get along with, just based off of what I see, right? And I had a great example of someone I was like, I don't think see him always at the same place. And then we became friends, and we actually had a lot in common. And it was, even through everything going on during COVID, like I became friends with a lot of people. I did a lot of advocating for my son during COVID with everything that was going on. Yeah. And I became friends with people that I normally never thought we would have anything in common. Yeah. And I think that's such a unique thing, because at the very core of it all, we're all looking for the same thing. We just want to get there in different ways and what have you. But empathy and balance are two things that I think we lack as a country in general. but you can't I can't change, like the way I look at it is I can't change politics in Hartford and I can't change politics in Washington, D.C., right? I have absolutely no control over that. What I do have control over is my own actions, my own behavior, and what I could put out in my community. And if we all can do that and have these great conversations and talk with people and show people like goodwill and what have you, that's it's kind of corny, but you slowly spread that and it kind of
absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree 100%.
which is very positive.
I love that.
I know I hate myself for saying this.
That's gonna be blasted out there now. I'm gonna take those snippets.
So one of the questions that we love doing, Pal and I are both kind of avid readers. We enjoy reading, so we always like to ask people when we're talking to them, like, what's your guys' favorite books or books that you would like to recommend or anything like
or
that?
Things that you've read that have inspired you.
Sure.
From a personal standpoint or from a business standpoint? Because
either, whichever you want. Yeah.
you go first.
I mean, I love to read all different kinds of books, usually nonfiction. Although a fictional book that I read a long time ago, I usually don't remember the names of books, but Cutting for Stone, just an amazing, amazing book. Recently, I know what I read, which is fascinating. How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. Oh,
I've heard about this. Has this
fascinating book? Read it.
So are you doing the Fairfield Minute is that as a one of several ventures or?
Yeah, so Pala has a design business that she went out on her own when she left agency life was in 2006 after our daughter was born. She really wanted to be able to be a part of our kids' lives. Because like for instance, when Angelo was our oldest, our son, when he was born, she never saw anything. Like I'd have to videotape his first steps, his first time trying food.
It was one of
those. It was one of those instances.
Your life, just one of those things.
It's a working in the advertising and marketing world.
Immersive.
It is, and it's just part of the culture and what have you. So then, when Anna Sophia was born, you wanted to make a conscious effort to be a part, and I was telling her, I'm like, dude, just go out on your own and do your thing. So we have our design business, which is really what it's Pala's design business, which is what that's like our main gig.
That's our main source.
And this is kind of like has been for a long while, and this is what we're slowly building. And even in a Fairfield Minute was something that was started off as a side project, but honestly started scaling really, really fast. And it kind of started taking off because people were into it, and which I'm incredibly grateful, of course. So and we're just kind of seeing where it's all going, and as you guys know, it's ever changing, liquid, very fluid, rather. And
we're just going with the flow, because again, it started like we were a newspaper. We were just a good news.
We were literally a newspaper that
community based. Like we had people literally in the community, and still do, like donating their time and their personal interests and passion points to our little, publication. And I feel like people just really connected and were appreciative of the interest in just their own lives. And I feel like, there's other publications out there, certainly for the town or even our Fairfield County. But I feel like, we've tapped into something where it's a little bit more on a personal level.
I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel, right?
No,
for us, it was just like I think I was tired of politics. To be very honest with you, I was tired of politics. I was tired of hearing about anti-mask, not anti-mask, pro-vaccine, like for me, all of that stuff is very personal choices for people. And I don't think like it would be like it got to the point where you meet someone and the first thing they're asking you is, are you pro-vaccination? Are you like, I don't know, man. I'm just like trying to get a coffee, whatever the case may be. And I wanted to change. I mean, and who the hell am I? But I wanted to do my part to change the narrative. One of the things, I don't know if you guys ever heard of I reference him a lot, so you'll probably see in other things that I write or talk about. David Meltzer. Meltzer was like, I believe he was you remember the movie Jerry Maguire, of course, with Tom Cruise. So he was, when Jerry Maguire went off and started his own agency, I believe he was Jerry's partner. So he was an agent to a lot of very famous athletes and what have you. And I stumbled upon him in during COVID on Instagram. A friend of mine shared one of his things about it and his goal. And he's lost a lot of money. He's got a lot of money and he's experienced a lot of things. But his goal is to make 1 billion people happy. Like that's literally his goal. He just wants to help people. And one of the things that he says that really resonated with me, and it's more of paraphrasing, is that, you know, when you give of yourself to other people or to, you know, the universe or whatever you want to call it, the universe is not going to give you necessarily what you want, but it's going to give you what you need. And he had an interesting point that he kind of caveated onto was that he really believed even if you're at your lowest in life, if you continue to give, the universe will take care of you. And that's something that I really bought into, and I've experienced through gratitude and really through gratitude. Like I said, earlier I said I have like a super negative mind or whatever. And, you know, the last 2 years for us have been incredibly challenging, especially being entrepreneurs and what have you. And then you throw in the fact that we live in Fairfield County and what have you. And I will tell you that even when we were having our toughest times, I continued to try to help people, right? And if I didn't have the means to help people, I would do something as silly as if I saw someone wearing a cool hat. I'd be like, hey, Oliver, I really like your hat, man. Or, hey, Erika, those are really cool sneakers, or whatever the case may be. Because in my mind, if I'm changing, if that person, right, you don't know if that person's having a bad day. You don't know what that person's doing. And just by a little comment, like I can't give, like, you know, it might be an instance where I couldn't give money to buy backpacks for inner city children, whatever the case may be. But I could make people feel better. So I would do those things and I would practice that. And I still do. And it is unbelievable how the universe, God, whoever you want to pray to or believe in or whatever, will come back, and it doesn't give you what you want, but it will give you what you need in the moment that you need it. And that is something that I've taken to heart over the last couple of years. And that's kind of the other thing about in a Fairfield Minute. It's really, you know, social media by definition and by design is a very narcissistic tool, right? Because we go onto these channels and we talk about ourselves. But you also see a lot of people who want to inspire. And listen, I'm nobody. How do you measure success is totally up to people. To your point, right? Do I stay in a high-powered job and have lots of money and be able to do all these really awesome things? Or that, and I have friends and I know a lot of people that is success to them. They base their success strictly based off of how much money they have and what they have. And there's nothing wrong with that. I really believe if that's what makes you happy and you're not hurting anyone, that's your thing. That's not my wheelhouse. I personally find success in spending time with my family and my friends and living a good life. And that good life could be just simply having the conversations that we're having right now, or going to the coffee shop with Paula and just hanging out, because that's a privilege that we didn't get to experience for like 15 years,
for a long time,
for a very, very long time. And I try to, you know, those are things are just, I don't know. I just think that it's so important with gratitude and what have you. And obviously there's days where I'm definitely not like that. I want to stick my head in a pillow, but
I'm with you.
But the goal is to just like, I don't know. I just think that like the goal is to just help people and help, you know, bring awareness to whatever it is. And it's small business and, you know, what have you, and just helping people.
I love that. I love that so much. I'm the positive one in our relationship. And I think that's so true, you know, just, and what you were saying about, you know, just being kind to someone, even if it's a bad day, if you are kind to someone, it brings you up.
Yes.
100%. Yeah.
There is an energy exchange when you take the time to lift someone up. What is it, Maya Angelou? Like that quote, like people might not remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. So always try to go into every day that way. Like, how can I make, you know, people that are out there, because people are watching all the time. What can I do to just make them smile, just make them laugh, give them a sense of confidence? Like, you know, we're all coming out of these tough times. We're all still living like the just because, like, you know, mandates or whatever might be lifting or things might be changing doesn't mean that people's reality suddenly change.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And this is a mentality and a, I don't know, an outlook that I think should continue.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really important because at the end of the day, if the dollar failed tomorrow, right? You know, think in theory, like all we have left in terms of I don't want to say value, but like you have your character in in who you are as a person, in your integrity and stuff like that. That becomes something that, you know, is interchangeable or whatever. So I'm definitely one of those people. I don't know about you guys. Like whatever energy you give me, I'm going to match.
Yeah.
So if you come at me hot, I'm going to come right back at you. And I don't necessarily like that about myself, but it's just how I'm wired as well. So I always try to approach things in the most, again, the irony, right? Because I think I have a negative mind, but in the most positive way possible, just to kind of change any kind of situation before it could even, you know, whatever.
Change
the dynamic of a situation.
Yeah.
I had an instance, and I don't want to get into too much detail, but I had someone come at me very, very aggressively because what we do doesn't take sides in terms of political agendas, right? The very, you know, you want to go see my personal political agendas, go to my personal Instagram page. I have nothing to hide. I don't practice anything controversial, right? But what I do for a living is is to bring people together and just a safe place, and I hate that term, but a safe place for people to go where they don't need to worry about hearing about anything that is polarizing to anybody. And this person was really mad at me that I would not take sides. And publicly came after me, like in a place or whatever. And it got whatever. And she was ended up sitting by herself, long story short. And I went up to her and I said, you know what? I want to sit with you if you don't mind. And I want to learn more about you. And I said that Maya Angelou quote, because I don't want to take whatever you said to me as an affront. I want to assume that what you were talking about was just strictly about passion. And I want to understand where you're coming from, because I don't want to leave this with you having a bad taste in your mouth about me. And I don't want to have a bad taste about you. You're probably a very good person. I ended up sitting with her for a couple of hours and learning more about her and what have you. And it was a great lesson for me to practice, because I learned, honestly, I learned patience and understanding of listening to someone and just hearing them out, whether I agree with them or not, and get a better understanding of where they're coming from. I don't know. I'm digressing. I can go on forever. But Oliver, what about you? Any books you could recommend?
You know, I read a lot of eclectic stuff. I read the same stuff Erika reads. I read a lot of science fiction, a lot of business books. Always just sort of picking up nuggets. You know, on a business side, there is Profit First, which I thought was one of the few books that I read that I was like, yeah, this really makes good sense for a small business owner. I didn't learn a lot, but I really liked the way the guy presented it, and prioritizing and saying a lot of things I think is missing. So I really like that. That was a good book. Just like the way he structured his thought processes and presented it. It was really good. You know, I read a lot of science fiction, to be honest. So, you know, and I plow through the books and
Alex likes to read science.
Yeah, I mean, please. I'm the youngest of three. My brother's huge sci-fi, so I got a lot of influence through him too.
Do you?
On the sci-fi.
I mean, I read a lot of eclectic stuff that sometimes I'm desperate on Amazon looking for something, and I just take whatever is like, you know.
Oh, this one plays like Russian roulette on his Kindle. Like, we love books, but he like tried to replace his phone to not get lost in like the phone. He got himself a Kindle because it's strictly,
there's no
reading.
Apps on it. It's just literally you can download books, right? It was just one of those.
Perfect.
There's no.
It's perfect for nighttime reading. And he'll just play Russian roulette and just pick something and just be and fun anything. And sometimes and I would turn around and I'd see him. It's like either you're like, yeah, this is great, or he's like bawling, or he's like doing that because he has no idea what's coming next, But every book was an experience, and I thought that was so fun.
So
it is fun. But you end up occasionally with a few duds, and you're like, oh, I can't believe I just
you're like
bucks on that. Like, I have this thing where I have to finish what I start.
Yeah,
and
even if
so,
it's painful.
But I've come across a few books that I could not finish. Like, I was like, this is so poorly written, I cannot complete it. I'm like, and I try because I feel obligated, and then I'm like, so occasionally I really hit a dud. But it's all over the place. But if it's science fiction and it's really well thought out, I'm in.
Nice. Very cool.
Very awesome.
So what are your dreams for, let's fresh start? Like, how do you have any future goals or things that you're,
you can go.
I was going to say the other thing I'd really like to, I'd like to figure out ways to make our laundry as green as possible.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Love
Yeah.
We're
that.
talking about possibly getting ozone, which would be so I don't know exactly how it works,
I'll
but
describe it.
you describe it.
So ozone is like when you have electrical electrical storm outside, lightning,
Yeah.
and you ever been near after really that fresh smell?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
ozone, electrolysis of water.
Ah,
And
okay.
ozone has been around for decades, but it's finally gaining ground because it only works well in cold water, not particularly well in hot water. So you save, so you don't need to use hot water to wash. You use cold water. It's an excellent cleaning. It cleans very, very well. It gives a very fresh smell to clothes, but it's natural. It's no chemicals.
So yeah.
And it's just like electrolysis of water. It's all it is. And it's injected into the wash cycle. So it makes the clothes smell really good. It makes them fluffier. And it makes them look and cleaner because it removes a lot of different stains better than all these soaps that we use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I'm in the process of going through that. So that's a really green
So
initiative.
I'm excited about that too, because we do offer obviously like the clear Tide, natural,
Yeah.
no chemicals.
No
But then we have people
fragrances.
calling saying like, oh, my clothes don't smell good. I'm like, well, because there's no fragrance,
Yeah.
so this way.
It's free and clear.
That's what
Yeah, exactly.
we use
Just
you
the way
guys.
you wanted it.
I have allergies, so I have to always do free and clear,
Yeah.
even if it's like the any kind of smell I can get. I can have
Yeah.
a reaction to.
And
from
we
it.
want to go get like one of our big things is we'd really like to get away from these plastic bags.
Oh, yeah.
But that's sort of a tough one. And we have
Yeah.
ideas. So Erica's researching and talking to packaging companies. And we got to see how well that's going to be received.
Mhm.
Because there is some advantages to the plastic, like particularly if you're returning people's clothes and it's raining or snowing outside.
Of course,
You know,
yeah.
And this
Yeah.
might be a dumb question, but I don't know that much about it. But like, are there viable alternatives to using, it's not true plastic, it's like bags made out of like corn or,
Oh,
what I
that
mean? Like,
I'm looking into that too. Like for
Yeah.
the doggy poop bags that are
Right.
biodegradable.
Yeah.
Something
the
like that.
biodegradable
Yeah.
bags.
Yeah.
But I don't know really how,
They're not that for a load of laundry. I don't know if they would really hold up, but
that's
Right.
what I'm
Sure.
they're
yeah.
always improving on those too. So I am looking into that for sure.
So we are looking at a lot of these things, particularly in terms of like equipment upgrades that like they have washers that spin at higher RPMs and you use less water, so you don't have to dry them as much and you don't have
That's
to
awesome.
waste all that electricity and gas drying clothes. So that's a
Thank you
benefit.
much. Yeah, about like that
So just
footprint.
overall trying to kind of like reduce your carbon footprint
Yeah.
from like
Yes.
Correct. And it's just important to us anyways. It's not like we're
Yes.
doing this as like, oh, this is the right thing to do for business.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't use fertilizer or pesticides in our
We have
yard.
chickens.
We
We're
have chickens,
beekeepers. We
bees,
like.
Oh,
we
very cool.
we
Beekeepers.
compost.
Yeah.
And we're not crazy environmentalists, but we see what's going on.
Yeah.
And so we both feel pressure to do that to make ourselves
works.
feel better.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it does. You're like, God, it's so wasteful. Like,
It's our responsibility too. Like it's all of our responsibilities to at least if you could do something that's going to benefit the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer, right?
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. And
Yeah.
then for me, the big thing is I really want to. The nice thing about pickup and delivery is that it's a better business than the self-service, meaning like when we had staff running the self-service in the store and just keep us helping customers and whatnot, we were really limited on how well we could pay people because there was just absolute ceiling that you could go to and still
Sure.
make it work. And what's nice about this business is that it's offering, it's a growth business. People are adopting it really quickly, which is great. People are starting to realize they spend way too much time doing laundry and they'd rather do other things than, wash and fold clothes. But, everyone outsources everything else. But the nice thing about this business is that there's no real limit to where we can grow to. Just a matter of how far we're willing to drive.
But you guys are covering a lot.
That's a lot of ground you mentioned. going
Fairfield
to
and Westchester County is
And
huge.
like we're looking into the new Transit Ford that has electric vans. which I'd
okay.
love to do, but you can't even order one right now because I've stopped taking orders.
Uh,
Um,
That's
so, but I really would like to get my staff up to where they have really good wages. I really like the people that work for me, and they are such hardworking, and they don't have the advantages that a lot of people like in Fairfield have.
Yeah.
They
Sure.
don't.
it's
And I really would love to get that. And I know we've talked about that, but it's important to
Yeah.
me to keep improving their income,
Mhm.
and by extension, their quality of their life. I just think it's important.
I agree. I think like one of the very fabrics of this country is to pick people up, right? Like I believe that. Like what we as an American, I think that one of the beautiful things about what we're able to do is that when you are become successful and whatever that success may be to you, right? If you could help someone under you to bring them back, to bring them up to, whatever,
Yep.
it's a beautiful thing. And I think that's something that all, I mean, I think not just in America, but, particularly within our value system or whatever, everyone believes that, right? To help
And
to
you
help
would
someone out.
hope.
Let me help you get here, and wherever you want to go from there, and so on and so forth.
But
And that
not
person's going to do the same to the person under them, and so
Yeah.
on.
And
Right.
I think our big corporations, unfortunately, are geared towards maximizing profit at the expense of their employees. Whereas I'm
Efficiency.
not trying to maximize profits. I'm trying to make a living and take care of my employees. And there's two reasons. One is it's the right thing to do, but the other reason is that it makes my business better
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I'm investing in my employees and they care more because they are doing better.
Correct.
And they so it's not completely altruistic on my side, but I've also seen the benefit and I also feel good about it.
Yeah.
So those are sort of the big things we're
Those are
working on
things that
currently.
I think that's
I
great.
think
Not
that's
everyone does that. Like we talk about it as if it's such a, well, of course, we would want to do that. Like, why wouldn't we? But unfortunately, like you said, it does not exist everywhere.
you know what you
No
don't see
matter
a lot of bosses say, I want to better the life of my employee. I've never worked
I
for a
just don't-
company that they've been like, Chris,
You're a
I want
number."
to make you great.
I think because we're a small business, we know our employees, so we're more. I'm definitely more empathetic,
Yeah,
and
of course.
I hear what's going on in their lives, and
You
and
listen too.
yeah,
You're really good about listening to them.
and I'm like, wow,
Like it's
I grew up with so many advantages, and my kids have grown up with so many advantages that 99% of the world never has access to.
Oh my God, 100%. Like
Isn't
when
that something you're always trying
we
to
were just talking about
embed
this
in your kid's
yesterday.
head?
Like we had we lost a lot of business because of COVID,
Yeah.
and we were fortunate because we had a savings account. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we were
Yeah.
able to rely on our savings account. And I remember telling Pella, like, we could freak out, right? And whatever, or we could acknowledge the fact that we have a savings account and probably 60% of Americans don't have a savings account.
Yeah.
And what have you. So it's so true. Like
Find your blessings.
find your
you know?
blessings and recognize that. There's nothing wrong with recognizing that you or I or whoever were given opportunity. Like it's a wonderful and beautiful thing that our parents were able to do that for us. But I do, to your point, feel that it's all collectively our responsibility to help other people that don't necessarily have that opportunity. I mean, I think that's a really great thing.
Well, correct. I agree with you, and I think a lot of people feel entitled when they don't realize that they're not entitled. They were given to it by the benefit of their birth,
Yeah.
and because of how they were born and raised, are so much further ahead of the curve than other people who might have more talent and might have more to offer, but have never had the leg up
yeah.
that the other person may have had.
Very
So, we're conscious of that. And, now we have owning a laundromat, you got very tight parameters you have to operate in order to make any money. But
Yeah.
with pickup and delivery, we can
More
grow.
wiggle
We have
room.
we have a lot
Yeah.
more wiggle room.
Yeah.
And it's more exciting because it allows you to do more things. And our timing is good. 15 years ago, this would have never worked. 10 years ago, this would have never worked. 5 years ago, it wouldn't even worked.
Yeah.
Mhm.
New York City, they've always used picked up and delivery laundry, but that's
Yeah.
because of the dynamics of living in New York City.
You guys notice an
Uh,
increase with all of like the Manhattan plants in town?
Yep.
think
Oh
so.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. There are a lot of people who've moved out of the city. We have a number of customers who moved,
A transplant.
who transplants, who were expecting to find that service
Right.
Yeah.
and found it. but it's interesting, 5 years ago, it largely didn't exist in Fairfield County.
There was one, I remember one, and I think they only did dry cleaning. It was like Zoots or something like that. That was the only one I could remember, and that was like 10 or 12 years ago. Remember that?
Kind of chainy, wasn't it? Like
I don't know if they were a chain, but they were somewhere where I think
They were trying to create a big brand chain. They're out of business now, but they were trying to use the hub and spoke model. I mean, I'm familiar with the people who are involved with that.
Yeah, that was the only one I remember. Other than that, I don't think.
But dry cleaners have been doing it for a long time. But outsourcing your laundry is relatively new for suburbia and just people in general.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of elderly people who use our service because they can't go to the basement and do their laundry anymore, or don't have the energy. Yeah. So we have, we covered the gamut, but also people are starting to value their time very differently, I think is the big takeaway.
Sure.
Your laundry is a perpetual hell. It just goes on and on and on.
It really is.
It just never stops. Yeah. And, if you really look at the number of hours you spend doing laundry in a week, it's stupefying, right? You're like, and you've become so ingrained in our lives that we don't really question it. But, people are now. And I think COVID was a big pusher of that. People were thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. And I outsource my lawn care. I outsource my gutter cleaning. I outsource my plowing in my driveway. I have people come in and help clean my house because I want to do other things with that time. Like I'd rather be at the gym than starting a load of wash,
But also, can I just interject? Aside from that, we get people who really truly need the service, like adult children who are calling for this service for their elderly parents who just can't do their laundry. So it's
so smart.
It's
we
great
have a
for
lot of
that.
that too. So it's really covers the gamut.
I don't think many people probably even realize that they can do that for their parents. Like for me, like my father, because he had so many years of service, he has an aide with him basically 7 days a week for 4 hours a day or whatever the case, and she does the laundry for him, thank God. But like I couldn't imagine, like, because my siblings and I, we couldn't go to my father's house every other day to do laundry or do whatever. It's just work and everything else in between. So that's something that's really
it's
awesome.
hard. It's a lot of responsibility, a sense of responsibility, whether or not you're like a caretaker to your family or just literally trying to ease a part of your life. That's a great point.
And then we do get quite a few people who are just disabled and also can't do their laundry. So
great.
So it really covers the gamut. It's people have everybody has laundry.
Yeah.
We just need to let them know they don't have to do it anymore.
Everyone, we all agree. Everyone has laundry and probably too much. Although our kids have massive wardrobe changes every day, which
our daughter
drives me
especially.
insane.
She goes through 3 outfit changes in the morning. Then when she gets home from school, it's like let's change into the comfies and then let's change into the pajamas. But I'm not going to use last night's pajamas. We're going to wear a new pair of pajamas. So everything ends up dirty on the floor. I'm like, can we please?
Meanwhile, I'm wearing the same jeans I've worn for 7 days. But they're comfy, so. So do you guys have give us a shout out your social channels, website, and all that?
How people
awesome
can
stuff.
find you?
Yeah.
So we are at www.getfreshstartlaundry.com. And it's really easy to go on there and sign up. And my phone number is on there also for any questions that anybody has.
That's so great. You're going to reach her directly.
You can reach me directly.
And Erica's very good at talking to people, better than me.
And we do this for businesses too, so we have medical offices. We have a cryotherapy in Westchester.
Very cool.
Spas and
gyms.
things.
One of the big things that there's a lot of big commercial laundry services out there, but they lease you your linens and it's very expensive.
Yeah. When I used to work in the restaurant business, I remember I'd have to order napkins and tablecloths and all that stuff, and it was a constant.
Yeah.
So, but for smaller businesses, it's cheaper to own their own towels. And we just charge by the pound, and we come in when you want it. You don't have to commit to a schedule or a monthly contract, or
you guys do residential and commercial then.
That's
we have a lot of commercial customers that are great. But they're smaller businesses. We wouldn't do a big hospital or hotel. That would not be something or would do.
Airbnbs.
Airbnbs, we do a number of
Oh,
those.
yeah, that's
Wow,
yeah,
you
I
guys
didn't even
really
think
thought
of
it.
that.
I'm not even thinking of all these
I
things.
used to work in corporate housing. I used to work in
That's
corporate housing, and
so
I
smart.
remember like when I would have to like tour our apartments and what have you. We would literally we did all of our own like because we would go into like in Stanford, right? We would go into like an apartment complex. We'd take down like 3 floors and have X amount of units, and then we would actually literally have to have like our housekeeping or whoever like take all of that laundry, bring it to a warehouse in Stanford, and then we had like massive washer machines and like an entire thing. And I always remember them doing. I'm like, all of that made my head hurt. It's so much.
One of the things that's interesting.
We can do stuff big laundries can't do. And that big laundries have what's called tunnel washers. There's big, huge machines that are monstrous. And the laundry goes in one, comes out the other, and then goes into these huge dryers. And I mean, they're big enough you can stand in some of these. And then they go to presses.
Yeah.
We service small businesses and residential because you need lots of smaller machines. Because your clothes are never mixed with anybody else's clothes. So it's got to be sorted, whites from colors and so forth and so on.
Oh yeah. See, I don't even.
So,
it doesn't even go there.
yeah. So so people don't think about this, but a big commercial laundry can't do what we do. They couldn't come to your house and do your laundry even if they wanted to, because they have no way of processing it. And plus we, use the slope you to choose and blah, blah, blah. And there's all these instructions, but we have 120 machines in our store.
Wow.
And they go from 80 pounds, which is a pretty big machine, to
Sure.
more of a standard 20 size pound wash. And we have to select the machine based on the size of what people have, and then dose each machine with the type of detergents they request and so forth and so on. And so that's why we are so able to do this. And we're really the only business that can. And that's why laundromats have become sort of extension home retail services for this, because you need to have a huge array of machines and equipment in order to do it. Which we have.
Yeah.
And that's why we're able to provide this service. And residential is perfect, because that's all we wash basically, is residential clothes.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. So.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Are you guys on Instagram?
We're just kind of building up Instagram and Facebook presence. I'm learning as I go along how to do that.
Perfect.
A lot of people use this like maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and
Sure.
we don't hear from them the rest of the year, but it's more like seasonal, like, comforter
Camps
time,
and stuff.
comforter camps, kids coming home from college or boarding school or camps. But like comforters, like we were having this discussion the other day with another friend of mine who runs a laundry service. He's like, how do people wash their comforters? Because we do a lot of comforters, but there are like 50,000 people in his town. And he's like, I'm not doing 50,000 comforters a year. And I know nobody's comforters fit in their home washers, because they don't.
Don't
And I'm
don't.
like, because I'm like 50,000 people
Yeah.
basically aren't washing their comforters, which is, if you think about it, a little gross. I mean,
I know. Every time I put the comforter in the washing machine, I'm just crossing my fingers and like, please don't get stuck. Please don't get stuck. And,
I know, right?
Yeah.
and I hate
Well,
doing that, but
well,
it's true.
Yeah, but it's crazy.
Right,
Yeah. And it's
yeah.
like, if we were laughing about it, it was like, yeah, if you think about it, a lot of people aren't washing their comforters because a king size comforter, if it's a heavy one, will not fit in a home washer.
Wash your comforters, people.
And for
Wash
you
your
guys,
comforters.
as long as it is, if I remember correctly, as long as it's like you hit like a certain mark, right? I think it was like $25, right? You guys, that's how much
minimum.
laundry you
Yeah.
could minimum, right?
Is 30.
I think.
Or 30. Okay, yeah. I probably have some friends who would literally be like, "Here's 2 pairs of jeans and 3 shirts."
We have people do that. We have people, these little bags, and they're like, yep, it's great. It's all I need. We're like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I have a friend who is very open about I work hard, I do this, but there's one thing I will never do in my home, and that is do laundry. And she will hire someone just like you would hire a babysitter or a house cleaner, and she will, she cannot for the life of her bring herself to turn on a machine. Like, she can't do it. And some people are like that. And you know what? If you're like that, that's okay.
My friend Scott, he lives in the city, and it's his favorite thing to do. Like, he calls me when he's at the laundromat. He's like, "Yeah, I'm just doing laundry."
It's me time.
It's me time or whatever. And for me, it's like my own worst hell. Like, if I have to go to the laundromat or just do laundry
And
at home,
sit
I'm like,
there.
because my mind races at a million different. I have like a million things going on in my head, and next thing you know, the dogs knock the clothes over.
think outside the box, a perfect little gift for your loved one is the gift of time
Yeah.
for laundry service.
I will do this.
I just heard like a reel on Instagram rather about like time, and time is one of those commodities that there's no value. That it's the most
It's not
important.
tangible.
It's
but
not tangible, right? But if you don't use it, it's gone and stuff like
Right.
that. So it's true.
Yeah.
This has been so fun.
I have to get down.
Very fun.
I
I have to
get
get
to know
to
you.
Stanford.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for taking the time and
Likewise.
chatting with us.
well, thank you so
All right,
much.
great chatting with
Thank
both
Yes.
of you.
I'm sure we'll chat soon too, for sure.
Have a great rest of your
Bye.
day.
Thanks,
Bye.
you too.
Bye bye.